The morning sun cast long shadows across the grand Colosseum of Nexus Prime. Thousands of beings filled the massive stone seats, their different shapes and colors creating a living rainbow of alien species. But today, none of them wanted to be. Here, they had been forced to come by the Velthari Empire, dragged from their homes and work to witness what their rulers called justice. Kim Minho knelt on the cold metal platform at the center of the arena. His wrists were bound with glowing energy shackles that hummed with power. The 17-year-old human boy kept his head up, looking straight ahead at the crowd. His dark hair fell across his forehead and his brown eyes showed no fear. This surprised many who watched him. The platform stood 20 feet high, making sure everyone could see what was about to happen. Large screens floated above the arena, showing Minho's face to those sitting too far away. The image was being broadcast to all 47 star systems under Velthari control. Billions would watch this human boy die. Emperor Zalthmar rose from his golden throne in the royal box. The massive reptilian creature stood over 8 feet tall, his black scales catching the light like polished metal. 4 powerful arms extended from his broad shoulders, each ending in clawed hands that could crush a human skull. His yellow eyes glowed with cold intelligence. As he looked down at the prisoner, the Emperor's voice filled every mind in the Colosseum. The Velthari could speak directly into the thoughts of other beings, and when Zalthmar used this power, it felt like ice water flowing through the brain. "Citizens of the Empire," his mental voice began, causing many in the crowd to wince. "Today, you witness the fate of those who dare resist our rule. This human child thought he could damage our military supplies. He believed his small acts of rebellion would inspire others to fight against us. Minho had been caught 3 days ago in a supply depot on the edge of the city. He had been placing small explosive devices near fuel containers when the guards found him. The bombs were crude things, made from stolen parts, but they would have destroyed enough supplies to feed a small army for weeks." The Emperor continued his speech, his words burning into every mind present. "Let this serve as a lesson to all species under our protection. We are your rulers because we are stronger, smarter, and more advanced than you will ever be. Resistance is not brave. It is stupid." In the crowd, other humans sat with their heads down. Most had been on Nexus Prime for 10 years, ever since the Velthari conquered Earth. They worked in factories, cleaned buildings, served food to their alien masters. They had learned to keep quiet, to blend in, to survive. Watching one of their own about to die made them feel sick and helpless, but scattered throughout the masses were humans who did not look away. Their eyes stayed fixed on Minho, memorizing every detail. These were members of the resistance, and they had come to honor their fallen comrade. They also came to remember this moment, to let it fuel the fire that burned in their hearts. The execution device hummed to life above Minho's head. It looked like a silver arch with energy crackling between its 2 sides. The beam it would create could cut through solid steel in seconds. A human neck would offer no resistance at all. "The condemned will now speak his final words," announced the executioner, a tall Velthari officer with ceremonial armor. His voice carried across the arena without the need for telepathy. Minho lifted his head higher. When he spoke, his voice was calm and clear, carrying surprisingly well in the huge space. "My name is Kim Minho. I am 17 years old. I am human, and I am not ashamed of what I did." A murmur ran through the crowd. Most prisoners begged for mercy at this point or said nothing at all. This boy sounded almost proud. "You think killing me will stop others from fighting," Minho continued. "You think my death will make humans afraid to resist you. You are wrong, Emperor." Zalthmar's eyes narrowed. He had not expected defiance from a child facing death. "Silence the prisoner," he commanded, but Minho kept talking, his voice growing stronger. "We are not the weak species you think we are. We have been watching you, learning from you, preparing for the day when we can fight back properly. You see us as servants and slaves, but that is because we wanted you to see us that way." The energy shackles began to glow brighter, sending pain through Minho's arms, but he did not stop. My death today will not end anything. It will begin something. Something you cannot imagine, something you are not prepared for. The Emperor stood up from his throne, all four arms spreading wide. Enough! Execute this insolent child now. The executioner reached for the activation control, but Minho spoke one final time. His words were not loud, but somehow everyone in the Colosseum heard them clearly. Tell my sister I kept my promise. Tell her the package was delivered. The energy beam flashed down from the arch. There was a sound like thunder, and then silence. Kim Minho was dead. The crowd sat in stunned quiet for several seconds. Then slowly they began to file out of the Colosseum. The Velthary guards watched them go, making sure no one caused trouble. The Emperor returned to his palace, satisfied that his message had been delivered to the galaxy, but in the depths beneath. The city, in tunnels and hidden chambers that the Velthary did not know existed, something was already beginning. Computer screens flickered to life. Communication devices started humming with encrypted signals. Weapons that had been hidden for years were being loaded and checked. The Resistance had been waiting for this moment. Minho's capture had not been an accident. His execution was not a defeat. It was the signal they had all been waiting for. The boy's final words about a package and a promise were code phrases that meant everything was ready. 60 minutes had begun to count down. In 60 minutes, the Velthary Empire would learn the true meaning of human anger. They would discover that some species become more dangerous when you hurt them, not less. The royal family was about to pay a price they never imagined possible. In the darkness below the city, Lihanna received word of her brother's death. She did not cry. She did not scream. She simply walked to a wall covered in screens and maps and activated systems that had been sleeping for a decade. It is time, she said quietly to the others gathered around her. The hunt was about to begin. Deep beneath the streets of Nexus Prime, in tunnels that had been carved from rock long before the Velthary arrived, Lihanna stood perfectly still. Around her, dozens of screens showed different views of the city above. Some displayed the Imperial Palace with its glowing shields and guard towers. Others tracked the movement of Velthary patrol ships as they flew. Between buildings, the news of her brother's death had reached the underground base 3 minutes ago. The other Resistance members watched Hannah carefully, waiting to see how she would react. They knew how much Minho meant to her. He was not just her younger brother. He was the last family she had left in the galaxy, but Hannah did not cry. She did not shout or throw things or collapse to her knees. Instead, she walked slowly to the main control console and began pressing buttons with steady hands. Her face was calm, but her eyes burned with something cold and dangerous. Status report, she said in a quiet voice that somehow carried to every corner of the large chamber. Park Jiho stepped forward first. The weapons specialist was a short, stocky man with scars on his hands from years of building bombs and guns. He carried a device that looked like a simple tablet, but the readings on its screen would have impressed even Velthary engineers. Oh, teams are in position, Jiho reported. We have people inside the palace, the communication center, the power station, and the military command building. Everyone received Minho's final signal, Hannah nodded. The package her brother had mentioned before his death was not a physical thing, it was information. For months, Minho had been mapping the palace's security systems while pretending to be just another young rebel causing minor trouble. Every time he was caught and questioned, he learned more about how the Velthary protected their leaders. What about the orbital defenses? Hannah asked. Choi Woo-bin answered from his position near another bank of screens. The former Earth Defense Force officer was supposed to have died when the Velthary invaded his home planet. Instead, he had escaped and spent the last 10 years learning everything he could about alien technology. The defense platforms are running on automatic cycles, Woo-bin said. They change their patrol patterns every hour, but we have been tracking them for months. At exactly 57 minutes from now, there will be a gap in their coverage over the palace's north side. It will last for 90 seconds. 90 seconds, Hannah repeated. Will that be enough? Songnari looked up from her own workstation. The small woman had once been Earth's leading expert on genetics and alien biology. Now she used that knowledge to find ways to hurt the species that had conquered her world. "More than enough," Nari said with a thin smile. "I have been studying Velthari physiology for years. Their healing systems are very advanced, but they have a weakness. Their blood cannot handle certain chemical compounds that are harmless to most other species. A single drop of the right substance can kill a full-grown Velthari in minutes." She held up a small vial filled with clear liquid. "I have enough here to eliminate the entire royal family. The hard part will be getting close enough to use it." "That will not be a problem," Hana said. She turned to face the group of men and women gathered around her. These were not the desperate rebels the Velthari thought they were fighting. These were soldiers, scientists, engineers, and spies who had been planning this moment for years. "Listen carefully," Hana continued. "The Velthari have ruled this galaxy for 50 years. They think they understand every species under their control. They believe humans are weak, stupid, and primitive. This belief is about to cost them everything they have built." She pressed a button, and the screens around the room changed to show detailed maps of the palace interior. The images were so precise they showed individual furniture pieces and decoration. This was intelligence that should have been impossible for humans to gather. "Our people have been inside their walls for 2 years," Hana explained. "Cleaners, cooks, repair workers, translators. Jobs the proud Velthari consider beneath their notice. While they ignored us, we mapped every room, every corridor, every hidden passage in their precious palace." Kang Do-yan raised his hand. The young man had been working as a maintenance technician in the palace for 18 months. "The imperial family will be in the secure wing after the execution," he said. "They always celebrate after killing humans. There will be a feast tonight in the Great Hall." "Perfect," Hana said. "Yung Suyang, what is the status of their computer systems?" A woman with short black hair looked up from a device covered in alien symbols. Suyang had learned to read and write in 17 different alien languages. While working as a translator for the imperial court, the Velthari never suspected that she was also copying every file she could access. "I have been planting viruses in their network for months," Suyang reported. "Not enough to cause immediate damage, but designed to activate all at once when triggered. When I give the signal, their entire administrative system will collapse. Every record, every order, every piece of data they have collected over 50 years will be destroyed." "And their military?" Hana asked. "Already handled," Wu Bin said with satisfaction. "Remember, they think we are too primitive to understand their technology. But we have been reverse engineering every piece of equipment we could get our hands on. Their weapons work on quantum energy frequencies. We have built devices that can disrupt those frequencies and turn their own guns into useless metal." Hana walked to the center of the room, where a large holographic display showed the palace in 3 dimensions. She studied it for a long moment, then began pointing to different sections. "Team Alpha will enter through the service tunnels here and here," she said. "Team Beta will come through the main gate, disguised as workers responding to emergency repair calls that we will create. Team Gamma will already be inside, waiting for the signal." "What signal?" someone asked. Hana smiled for the first time since learning of her brother's death. It was not a pleasant expression. "When the lights go out," she said simply. The room fell silent as everyone considered what that meant. They were not planning to raid the palace or hold it for ransom. They were planning to kill everyone inside. "Are we really going to do this?" asked a young woman near the back of the group. "Murder the entire royal family?" Hana turned to look at her. "They made this choice when they decided to execute my brother in front of the galaxy," she said. "Minho died to give us this opportunity. We will not waste his sacrifice." She looked around the room at the faces of her fellow humans. Some looked worried. Others appeared excited. All of them looked determined. "In 55 minutes we will begin the operation," Hana announced. "By the time an hour has passed since Minho's death, the Velthari Empire will no longer have a royal family to rule it. Questions? No one spoke. Then let us prepare to honor my brother's memory. Above them, the city continued its normal routine, unaware that everything was about to change. The imperial palace of Nexus Prime rose from the center of the city like a crystal mountain. Its walls gleamed with energy shields that could stop the most powerful weapons. Guard towers dotted its perimeter, each one armed with cannons that could destroy a starship. The Velthari had built it to be the most secure building in the galaxy. They were wrong. In the basement levels, where the palace's mechanical systems hummed with constant activity, Kandoyan emerged from a ventilation shaft. His maintenance uniform was dirty from crawling through ducts, but his eyes were sharp and alert. He looked at his watch. 47 minutes had passed since Minho's execution. Doyan reached into his tool bag and pulled out what looked like a simple repair scanner. But when he pressed a hidden button, the device's screen showed something very different. It displayed a map of the palace's power grid, with dozens of red dots marking critical junction points. "This is Doyan," he whispered into a tiny microphone. Hidden in his collar, beginning Phase 1. 3 floors above him, in the palace kitchens, a woman named Kim Yunji was preparing food for the royal family celebration feast. She had worked in these kitchens for 2 years, chopping vegetables and washing dishes, while the Velthari cooks ignored her. They thought humans were too stupid to learn their recipes or understand their customs. Yunji smiled as she reached into her apron and pulled out a small bottle of clear liquid. Nari's poison was odorless and tasteless. Mixed into the right dishes, it would kill every Velthari who ate it within minutes. But that was not the main plan. The poison was just insurance in case the other teams failed. In the communications center on the palace's top floor, Yung Suyang sat at her translator's desk, pretending to work on documents. The Velthari officer supervising her was reading reports from across the empire, unaware that the quiet human woman beside him was about to destroy everything he held dear. Su Young single quotes as fingers moved carefully across her computer terminal. To anyone watching, she appeared to be translating a trade agreement between 2 distant planets. In reality, she was activating the viruses she had planted throughout the Imperial network over the past 18 months. The first virus was simple. It would cause small errors in routine communications, making it harder for different parts of the palace to coordinate with each other. The second virus was more complex. It would slowly corrupt the backup power systems, ensuring that when the main power failed, the emergency generators would not work properly. The third virus was the most dangerous of all. It would turn the palace's own security systems against their masters. "Translation complete, sir," Suyang said politely to the Velthari officer. "Good," the alien replied without looking up. "Begin work on the next document." If he had looked at Suyang's screen at that moment, he would have seen lines of code scrolling past instead of words. But like most Velthari, he assumed humans were too primitive to understand advanced technology. In the palace gardens, Park Jiho walked slowly along the paths between alien flowers, carrying a bag of fertilizer. He was dressed as a groundskeeper, a job he had held for 6 months. The Velthari guards paid no attention to him. They were focused on watching for threats from outside the palace walls. Jeho stopped beside a decorative fountain and knelt down as if to plant new flowers. Instead, he opened his bag and pulled out devices that looked like rocks. Each one was actually a powerful explosive, designed to destroy the energy conduits that powered the palace's shields. He placed the fake rocks carefully around the fountain's base, where they would be hidden by the flowing water and bright flowers. When detonated, they would cut power to the entire north wing of the palace, including the royal family's private quarters. "Garden team in position," he whispered into his hidden microphone. Throughout the palace, dozens of other humans were carrying out similar tasks. Li Myung-yi, who cleaned the floors in the guard stations, had secretly disabled the locks on weapon storage rooms. The guards would find their armories sealed shut when they needed their guns most. Choi Sang-hoon, who repaired heating systems, had sabotaged the environmental controls in key areas. Soon, poison gas would begin flowing through air vents in the imperial chambers. Kim Ji-won, who maintained the palace's vehicles, had planted explosives in the royal family's escape shuttles. If any of them tried to flee, they would die before leaving the ground. The most dangerous infiltrator was someone the Velthari had never suspected at all. Princess Kalath's personal servant, a young human woman named Osulji, had been living in the royal quarters for over a year. The princess trusted her completely, even sharing private thoughts and fears with her. Sel knew the exact location of every member of the royal family. She knew their daily schedules, their favorite foods, their security codes, and their emergency procedures. She had been feeding this information to the resistance for months. Now, as she helped the princess choose jewelry for the celebration feast, Sulji was counting down the minutes until she would reveal her true purpose. "The emerald necklace looks beautiful on you, Your Highness," Sulji said with a gentle smile. "Thank you, dear," Princess Kalath replied. "I do hope tonight's celebration goes smoothly. Public executions always make me nervous. I am sure everything will be perfect," Sulji said softly. In the palace's central control room, the Velthari technicians watched their security screens with growing confusion. Small malfunctions were appearing throughout the building. A door lock here, a camera there, minor problems that individually meant nothing. "Should we report these issues?" asked a junior technician. "No need," replied his supervisor. "Probably. Just normal wear and tear. The human workers will fix them tomorrow." The supervisor had no way of knowing that the human workers had caused the problems in the first place. At exactly 30 minutes after Minho's execution, every human infiltrator received the same coded message through their hidden communication devices, 2 words that would change the history of the galaxy. Phase 2. Doyan placed his scanner against a main power conduit and pressed a sequence of buttons. Throughout the palace, similar devices activated simultaneously. The Velthari had built their fortress with the finest technology in the galaxy, but they had never considered that their enemies might understand that technology better than they did. The lights flickered once, then went out completely. In the sudden darkness, the sound of human laughter echoed through the corridors. The hunt had begun. When the lights died in the Imperial Palace, Emperor Zalthmar was in his private dining chamber, celebrating the successful execution with his closest advisors. The massive reptilian ruler had been enjoying a meal of rare delicacies from across the empire when darkness suddenly swallowed the room. "Emergency lighting," the Emperor commanded, his telepathic voice sharp with irritation. Nothing happened. The backup systems that should have activated within seconds remained silent. Around the table, his advisors began to murmur nervously in their native tongue. "Guards," Zalthmar called out. "Report." No answer came from the doorway where his personal protectors should have been standing. The Emperor's forearms reached for the communication device on his belt, but when he pressed the activation button, only static filled the air. "Sir," whispered one of his advisors, a thin Velthari named Kexalon, "something is wrong. This is not a normal power failure." Before the Emperor could respond, a new sound filled the chamber. Footsteps, slow, deliberate, human footsteps approaching through the corridor outside. But there should be no humans in this part of the palace. The royal quarters were restricted to Velthari only. The footsteps stopped just outside the dining chamber door. Then a voice spoke from the darkness, calm and clear. "Emperor Zalthmar, my name is Lihanna. You killed my brother today." The door slid open with a soft hiss. Emergency lighting from the corridor cast the silhouette of a human woman against the doorframe. She stepped into the room, and the Emperor could see that she was not alone. Other humans moved behind her, their shapes barely visible in the dim light. "Impossible," Zalthmar growled, rising to his full height. "How did you get past my guards? How did you enter my palace?" "Your guards are sleeping," Hannah replied simply. "A gas that is harmless to humans but causes unconsciousness in Velthari. As for entering your palace, we have been here for years. You just never noticed us." The Emperor's advisors scrambled back from the table, pressing themselves against the far wall. They had heard stories about human violence, but they had always dismissed them as exaggerations. Humans were supposed to be weak, cowardly creatures. You cannot harm me, Zalthmer declared, his scales beginning to glow with bioluminescent threat patterns. I am protected by the natural armor of my species. Human weapons cannot penetrate Velthari hide, Hannah smiled in the darkness. You are right. Traditional human weapons would not work against you. But we have had 10 years to study your people, to learn your weaknesses, to develop new methods. She raised her hand, showing a small device that looked like nothing more than a metal tube. This contains a concentrated acid that dissolves Velthari scales in seconds. 1 drop on your skin and you will die in agony. The Emperor took a step backward. You are bluffing. Humans do not have such technology. Test me, Hannah said softly. The challenge hung in the air like a blade. Zalthmer looked at the device in her hand, then at the other humans spreading out around the room. For the first time in his long life, the mighty Emperor felt something he had never experienced before: fear. What do you want? He asked, his mental voice much quieter now. Justice, Hannah replied. You made my brother kneel in front of thousands and cut off his head for the crime of fighting for his people's freedom. Now you will understand how it feels to be helpless. She pressed a button on her device and a thin stream of liquid shot across the room. It struck the wall near the Emperor's head, and where it touched the metal, the surface began to bubble and dissolve. The next shot will not miss, Hannah warned. Behind her, Park Jiho stepped into the room carrying what looked like a standard Velthari energy rifle. But when he aimed it at the Emperor's advisors, the weapon hummed with a different sound than normal. We took apart your weapons, Jiho explained casually. We learned how they work, then we made them better. This rifle now fires concentrated bursts of energy that will cut through your natural armor like paper. One of the advisors, an elderly Velthari named Veltar, fell to his knees. Please, he begged. We were only following orders. The execution was the Emperor's decision. You cheered, said another human voice from the doorway. Song Nari entered the room, carrying a medical scanner. All of you cheered when that boy died. You celebrated his death like it was entertainment. She activated her scanner and pointed it at the kneeling advisor. Interesting. Your species has an unusual nervous system, very sensitive to certain types of electromagnetic pulses. The scanner began to emit a high-pitched whine. Veltar screamed and collapsed to the floor, his body convulsing as artificial seizures racked his nervous system. Stop, the Emperor commanded. I will give you anything you want. Money, ships, your own planet to rule. Just stop this madness. Hannah looked at him with cold eyes. There is nothing you can give us that we want. Nothing you can offer that will bring my brother back to life. She walked slowly around the dining table, her footsteps echoing in the silent chamber. Do you know what Minho said to me the night before he was captured? He said that someday the Velthari would pay for every human they had killed. He said that our people would not remain slaves forever. We gave your species purpose, Zalthmer protested. Before we conquered you, humans were divided, fighting among yourselves, destroying your own planet. We brought order to your chaos. You brought death to our worlds, Hannah replied. You turned our children into slaves and our leaders into corpses. You taught us that the only way to survive was to serve you without question. She stopped directly in front of the Emperor, looking up at his towering form without any sign of fear. But you made one mistake, she continued. You assumed that because we served you, we accepted you as our masters. You never considered that we might be learning from you, studying you, preparing for the day when we could fight back. The Emperor's eyes widened as the full implications of her words sank in. How long? He whispered. How long have you been planning this? Since the day you conquered Earth, Hannah answered. Every human who died under your rule, every child who grew up in slavery, every act of cruelty your soldiers committed, they all taught us something important. They taught us that mercy is a luxury we cannot afford. She raised the acid dispenser again, this time pointing it directly at the Emperor's face. My brother's death was the signal we had been waiting for. In 15 minutes, your entire royal family will be dead. Your empire will collapse without its leaders. and humans will finally be free. The Emperor tried to back away, but found his path blocked by other resistance members who had entered the room silently. "Please," he said, his mighty voice reduced to a whisper. "There must be another way." "There was," Hannah replied. "You could have treated us with respect instead of cruelty. You could have ruled through cooperation instead of fear. You could have spared my brother's life." She paused, her finger hovering over the trigger of her weapon. "But you chose violence. So now? Violence chooses you?" The acid shot across the room, and the Emperor's screams echoed through the palace corridors. While Emperor Zalthmar writhed in agony in his dining chamber, the rest of the Velthari royal family was discovering that their sanctuary had become a death trap. Throughout the palace, the humans who had served them faithfully for years were revealing their true purpose. Prince Vextar, the Emperor's eldest son, was in his personal gymnasium when the lights went out. The massive Velthari had been training with combat weapons, preparing for a hunting expedition planned for the next day. He was confident that whatever was happening, his superior strength and fighting skills would protect him. He was wrong. Sulji appeared in the doorway of the gymnasium, no longer the timid servant who had cleaned his rooms and prepared his meals. In her hands she carried a device that looked like a simple medical injector, but the prince could see strange modifications that had been added to it. "Sulji," Vextar said, lowering his practiced sword, "what are you doing here?" "Where are my guards?" "Your guards are dead," Sulji replied calmly. "Poisoned by the food they ate an hour ago. The same food I prepared under your kitchen staff's supervision." The prince's eyes narrowed. You did this?" "I have been planning this for 2 years," Sulji confirmed. "Every day I watched you treat humans like animals. Every night I listened to you laugh about the executions and the suffering you caused. I memorized every cruel word you spoke." She raised the injector, and Vextar could see a glowing liquid inside its chamber. "This contains a modified version of your own healing serum. Normally, it would repair any injury to your body in minutes. But I have altered its genetic structure. Instead of healing you, it will cause your own regeneration system to attack your healthy tissue." The prince grabbed for his energy weapon, but found that it would not activate. The power cell was dead, drained by a virus that Sulji had introduced into his personal equipment weeks ago. "Your body will heal itself to death," Sulji explained as she approached him. "Your skin will grow over your eyes and mouth. Your bones will multiply until they pierce your organs. Your blood vessels will expand until they burst. It will take hours, and you will be conscious for all of it." Vextar tried to run, but discovered that his legs were already growing weak. The air in the gymnasium had been laced with a paralytic agent that only affected Velthari nervous systems. "Please," he gasped as he fell to his knees. "I never personally harmed any humans. I was just following tradition." "You ordered the destruction of the human colony on Kepler 7, Sulji said, without emotion. 50,000 people died because you wanted to build a hunting preserve. You turned their children into target practice for your friends." She pressed the injector against his neck and activated it. The prince screamed as the corrupted healing serum entered his bloodstream. "Now you will have plenty of time to think about those children while your body destroys itself," Sulji said, stepping back to watch her former master begin his slow, agonizing death. In another wing of the palace, Princess Kaleth was trapped in her own chambers with 3 of her cousins. They had barricaded the door when the power failed, believing it would keep them safe. Instead, it had sealed them inside with their killer. Kim Yoonji, who had served as a kitchen worker, had been hiding in the princess's wardrobe for hours, waiting for this moment. She emerged now, carrying a spray bottle filled with a chemical compound that Nari had designed specifically for Velthari physiology. "Surprise," Yoonji said pleasantly, as if she were announcing dinner. The princess shrieked and pressed herself against the far wall. "Guards, guards." "Your guards cannot hear you," Yoonji explained. "The palace's communication system has been destroyed. Even if they could hear you, they are all dealing with their own problems right now." She began spraying the chemical into The air, where it touched the Velthary's skin, angry red welts appeared immediately. This is a concentrated extract from a plant that grows on Earth, Yunji continued in a conversational tone. Completely harmless to humans, but it causes severe allergic reactions in your species. Your airways will swell shut in about 10 minutes. 1. Of the princess's cousins, a young male named Kexron tried to break through the barricaded door, but the humans had welded it shut from the outside while the royals were distracted by the power failure. "Why are you doing this?" Princess Kaleth wheezed as the chemical began to affect her breathing. "We treated you well. We gave you food and shelter and purpose." "You gave me chains," Yunji replied. "You forced me to cook meals for the people who murdered my family. You made me smile and bow while you planned the deaths of more humans." The princess fell to her knees, clutching her throat as her airways began to close. We were only maintaining order. "My daughter was 7 years old when your soldiers killed her," Yunji said quietly. "She had never hurt anyone. She spent her days playing with toys and asking questions about the stars. Your people shot her because she was in the way during a raid on our settlement. She sprayed more chemical into the air, ensuring that none of the royals would survive. I have been waiting 3 years for this moment," Yunji continued. 3 years of pretending to be grateful for your mercy. 3 years of planning exactly how I would watch you die." The princess tried to speak, but only choking sounds emerged from her swollen throat. Throughout the palace, similar scenes were playing out in every room where members of the royal family had taken shelter. The humans had studied their targets for years, learning their habits, their fears, their weaknesses. Each death was carefully planned to be as poetic and meaningful as possible. Young Prince Kolsith, who had enjoyed watching human gladiator fights, found himself trapped in an arena with combat robots that had been reprogrammed to hunt Velthary. He experienced firsthand the terror that human fighters had felt when forced to battle for his entertainment. Lord Vashtor, who had overseen the slave labor camps, was locked in a room where the temperature was slowly rising. He would die of heat exhaustion, just like the human workers who had collapsed in his factories. Lady Nexara, who had collected human art stolen from conquered worlds, was exposed to a sonic frequency that caused hallucinations in Velthary brains. She would spend her final hours experiencing the nightmares that had plagued human refugees. Each member of the royal family died alone, killed by humans they had considered beneath their notice. The servants, the workers, the translators, and the cleaners had become instruments of justice, delivering death with the same efficiency they had once used to serve their masters. As the minutes passed, reports reached the underground resistance base. One by one, the targets were eliminated. The Velthary Empire's leadership was being systematically destroyed by the very people they had oppressed. In her command center, Hana listened to each confirmation with grim satisfaction. Her brother's death was being avenged in the most complete way possible. The aliens who had ruled through fear were learning what it meant to be afraid. 55 minutes since the execution," reported Wu Bin from his monitoring station. "All primary targets eliminated." "The royal bloodline is extinct," Hannah nodded. The hunt was nearly complete. Soon the galaxy would know that humanity was no longer willing to kneel before alien masters. The age of human servitude was ending. The age of human dominance was about to begin. The last member of the Velthary royal family died exactly 59 minutes and 30 seconds after Kim Minho's execution. Empress Dowager Thalrix, the emperor's ancient mother, breathed her final breath in the palace's most secure vault. Surrounded by treasures stolen from 1,000 conquered worlds, she had watched through security monitors as her family was systematically hunted down by the humans they had enslaved. She had seen her son writhe in agony as acid ate through his scales, watched her grandchildren choke on poison gas, witnessed the complete destruction of everything she had spent her life building. The vault's life support systems had been sabotaged. Hours earlier by maintenance workers she had never bothered to learn the names of. As the oxygen ran out and the temperature dropped, the Empress Dowager finally understood the truth that her species had refused to see. Humans were not the primitive creatures the Velthary had believed them to be. They were patient, intelligent, and utterly ruthless when pushed too far. They had spent a decade studying their conquerors, learning their weaknesses. Preparing for this moment of perfect revenge, the old Empress's last thought was a question that would never be answered. How many other species in the galaxy were secretly planning similar rebellions? In the command center beneath the city, Lihanna watched the final life sign disappear from her monitors. Around her, the other resistance leaders stood in silence. As the implications of what they had accomplished began to sink in, they had destroyed an empire in less than an hour. The Velthari royal family, which had ruled 47 star systems for over a century, was extinct. Their government was in chaos, their military was leaderless, and their administrative systems were collapsing as viruses ate through their computer networks. "It is finished," Hana said quietly. Choi Wubin looked up from his communication station. "We are receiving signals from resistance cells across the galaxy. Human uprisings are beginning on every world in the Empire." The news was not surprising. The resistance had been coordinating with freedom fighters throughout Velthari space for years. Minho's execution had been the signal they were all waiting for. As word spread that the royal family was dead, humans everywhere were rising up against their oppressors. "What about the Velthari military?" asked Park Jiho. "Confused and divided," Wubin reported. "Without the royal family to give them orders. The different fleet commanders are arguing about who should take control. Some want to retreat to defend their homeworlds. Others want to launch revenge attacks against human colonies." "Let them argue," Hana said with cold satisfaction. "While they waste time fighting each other, our people will seize control of key systems throughout their territory." Song Nari entered the command center, her clothes still stained with chemicals from her work in the palace. "The genetic viruses have been released into the city's water supply," she reported. "Within days, every Velthari on Nexus Prime will be infected with a disease that targets their reproductive system. They will not be able to produce offspring." "Will it spread to other worlds?" Hana asked. "Eventually," Nari confirmed. "The virus is designed to be highly contagious among Velthari, but completely harmless to other species. Within a generation, their population will collapse." It was a brutal form of justice, but Hana felt no sympathy for the aliens who had conquered her world. The Velthari had shown no mercy when they destroyed human cities and enslaved human children. They deserved none in return. Yung Suang looked up from her computer terminal. "I am receiving reports from our agents in the Imperial Archives. They have successfully copied all of the Empire's historical records and technological databases before destroying the originals." "Good," Hana said. "We will need that information to understand how their technology works and how to adapt it for our own use." The irony was not lost on her. The Velthari had conquered humanity using superior technology, believing that their advanced weapons and starships made them unbeatable. But humans had proven to be better students than their teachers had expected. Everything the aliens knew, humanity now knew as well. Kondo Yun emerged from a maintenance tunnel, his face grim but satisfied. "The palace is completely destroyed," he reported. "The explosives we planted in the foundation have brought down the entire structure. There will be nothing left for the Velthari to rebuild." Outside, the first light of dawn was beginning to shine through the underground complex's hidden windows. In the distance, they could hear the sounds of celebration as news of the royal family's death spread through the human population of the city, but Hana did not feel like celebrating. Her brother was still dead. Earth was still a conquered world. Billions of humans across the galaxy were still living under alien rule. "This is only the beginning," she announced to the gathered resistance leaders. "We have cut off the head of the snake, but its body still writhes. There are Velthari governors on every human world, alien soldiers in every human city. Our work is far from finished." She walked to the main display screen, which now showed a map of the entire galaxy. Red dots marked the locations of Velthari, military bases, and administrative centers. Green dots showed human colonies and resistance strongholds. "We have proven that humans are not the weak species our enemies believed us to be," Hana continued. "Now we must prove that we are worthy." of the freedom we have won. She pressed a button, and the display changed to show detailed invasion plans for 12 key star systems. The Resistance had been preparing for this moment for years, building fleets in hidden shipyards, training armies in secret bases, developing weapons that could match anything the aliens possessed. The Velthari taught us many things during their occupation, Hannah said with a thin smile. They taught us about advanced technology, about interstellar warfare, about ruling over multiple species and star systems. She looked around the room at the faces of her fellow humans. These were not the desperate rebels the aliens had expected to face. They were soldiers, scientists, engineers, and leaders who had spent a decade preparing for this war. Most importantly, Hannah concluded, they taught us that mercy is a luxury that conquerors cannot afford. When we take their worlds, when we destroy their cities, when we hunt down their leaders, we will remember that lesson. The screen changed again, showing the faces of human children who had been born into slavery, who had never known freedom, who deserved better than the life the Velthari had forced upon them. My brother died to give us this opportunity, Hannah said, her voice growing stronger. We will not waste his sacrifice. We will not stop until every human in the galaxy is free. And we will not show mercy to those who showed us none. She raised her fist, and the others followed her example. For Minho, she declared. For Minho, they replied in unison. For humanity, Hannah continued. For humanity, they answered. For freedom, for freedom. Above them, the sun was rising over Nexus Prime, casting its light on a galaxy that would never be the same. The Velthari Empire was dead, killed by the very species it had tried to enslave. The age of human submission was over. The age of human dominance had begun. In the years that would follow, historians would debate whether the destruction of the royal family had been an act of justice or revenge. But for the humans who had lived through the occupation, who had watched their children sold into slavery and their leaders executed for entertainment, the distinction did not matter. They had been pushed too far, and they had pushed back. The galaxy would remember the lesson. Never underestimate the species that calls itself human. Never again would humanity kneel.